Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I'll be performing another upgrade on my 2015 Fiat 500 Abarth. For those of you who haven't seen the last several videos I've shot on this car, I've got some links for you to check out down in the description box below, including the initial in-depth review, an in-depth exhaust video, and the first mod video where I installed a couple of things from Madness AutoWorks, including a really cool short throw shifter kit and their Madness Go Pedal Plus digital throttle controller. This car is already so much fun, but I want to make it even more fun and just, tinker on it here and there. There's a bunch of stuff I've had in this mental wish list for a while, and I'm just gonna chip away at it, so to speak, and film some fun content for you guys, so I hope you enjoy. Also, if any of you watching this video own a Fiat 500 or an Abarth and are interested in learning more about any of the products that I'm using in these videos, or if you want to pick up something for yourself, I've got some additional links also down in the description box below, where you can support the channel by purchasing via my affiliate links. I really appreciate it. In this video, I'll be installing a Madness AutoWorks MaxFlow Performance Air Intake System, which seems really cool. I've done a lot of research, and in my opinion, this is one of, if not the best intake kits available for these cars. There's a bunch of other types of air intake setups available out there, but like some of them, for example, will get rid of all of the piping and airbox and stuff and just have an open filter element sitting on the passenger side top end of the motor, which I think kind of defeats the purpose, because the factory air intake actually ducts to the radiator support, so you're already drawing in colder air from the outside, and when you stop doing that, yeah, it's less restrictive, but then you're pulling in a bunch of hot air at the same time. That's why a lot of people joke around, the traditional cold air intakes, a lot of times, people will call them hot air intakes. But anyway, this system from Madness is a completely sealed system that utilizes the front portion of the factory intake, so you're still drawing in that cold air from the outside. But it cleans up everything up top, dresses everything up, so the airflow is far less restrictive, and being that it's a closed system, it still retains all of the factory PCV and emissions routing and all that stuff. So yeah, in addition to that, which is nice, it'll keep things clean, and it's also going to look cool, should give it a little bit more power, and I'm looking forward to hearing how it sounds as well, because these already sound really good, but I want to hear that turbo some more. But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff to do. This looks like a pretty straightforward process. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Without further ado, let's have some fun. First things first, I have to get all of the factory airbox stuff out of the way that's no longer going to be used. The only thing that's staying is this plastic pipe that runs down to the radiator support. That's where the factory intake system gets its cold air from, and that's where the Madness system will get its cold air from. So that's pretty cool. This is all just basic hand tool stuff. Maybe a nylon pry tool, pair of pliers, a 10mm, 13mm, and a 5/16 for, the various stainless hose clamps. But anyway, simple process. Let's just get to it. There's some stuff that I had to remove on the back side of the airbox, including an electrical connector for the crankcase pressure sensor and a couple of vacuum lines. The vacuum lines connect to a port on the back of the airbox with just some, quick disconnect clips, and then there's another clip that just, keep the lines secure against the airbox. But now that that stuff is removed, everything else has been removed, this can be completely taken off of the car. Now there is some stuff, this stuff I just talked about on the back of the airbox that I'm gonna have to remove and transfer over to the Madness setup. So let me go ahead and take care of that, and I'll show you guys, how all that stuff's gonna work. Here's the crankcase pressure sensor, and here is the connector where the 2 vacuum lines went in. So we're gonna reuse this, and we're gonna take this off as well. This is just pressure fit in here. This is held in by 2 T20 Torx screws. Next, I'm going to install the turbo blanket, but before I do that, I wanted to explain how some of these parts off of the original airbox are going to be reused. This is just for demo's sake. So this carbon fiber air canister, which is stunning, by the way, has this little nipple on it. In the kit, you've got this Y fitting with 2 different lengths of hose and then the larger piece right here. The longer of the 2 is going to go into the nipple in the canister, and then the shorter end is going to get plugged with the crankcase pressure sensor. And then the hose from the airbox is going to join on this larger section right here. So it's going to all be plumbed up. That's how we've got the closed system with all the emissions and all that good stuff all still plumbed in like it would have been from the factory. So let's go ahead and do the turbo blanket. The turbo blanket is going to replace this factory metal heat shielding. It's just a better thermal insulator. So the first thing that has to come off is this brace plate right here. And that's going to lift off and just be set aside for the moment. And swap on over to the 10mm and start taking out the bolts for the heat shield. Along with the 3 10mm bolts up top, I forgot to mention earlier, there's what looks to be a couple of 10mm nuts down in front. So for that, probably going to want to use a wrench or something like this, a little ratcheting wrench. Makes it a little easier to get into tight spaces. The turbo blanket installs in the exact same spot as the factory heat shield and also uses the same bolt holes. Getting all of these pipes put together is going to be pretty straightforward, but one thing that I would recommend just to make the installation a little bit easier, all of the bead rolled areas are like just inside the couplers. Spray some like silicone spray or put some dielectric grease on. Like, you don't want to make a mess or anything like that, but you want to lubricate the surface so when you're getting everything test fitted and put together, you're not completely fighting yourself. Everything will have a little bit of give for it. It'll just make your life a whole lot easier in the long run. Another thing to be aware of, the air canister is directional. You've got the engine side and you've got the intake side. There's screws and you can pop the cap off and remove the cone filter that's built in there. It's a washable, reusable filter. You can actually get one of these care kits. So, when it comes time to do the maintenance and stuff, you can clean it, re-oil it, and all of that good stuff. It's just one of the optional extras you can tack on when you're checking out. So before I start putting on this first section of pipe, there's a small dowel pin at the very edge of where the silicone coupling would meet the turbo. You don't need it, it's part of the, like, locating the factory plastic pipe. So now that that has been taken out, let me grab this bolt so I don't lose it in the engine. Go ahead and get this coupler slid on to the turbo side. Okay, that's all the way seated up. I can get that loosely tightened down and also fit the first pipe. Now this area was a little tricky. It took me a second to figure it out. I kept running into a little clearance problem, but the solution was pretty simple. So when I was test fitting this pipe, it's got a little tab right here that uses the bolt hole for the oil fill cap to secure in place. But when I tried to lay it down all the way, I kept hitting this turbo coolant pipe. Now it's a metal hard line that runs into a rubber line that goes somewhere else. And there's this clip right here that was fastened to this plastic cover with a little Christmas tree clip. So I undid that clip. I'll end up removing this, and I just had to tweak the hard line a little bit just to move it out of the way so this pipe can lay down where it needs to lay down. Now I'm going to take off this 10mm bolt for the oil fill cap. I've got a new one that's a bit longer that's going to go in its place, and then we can get this section of pipe completely secure. Now to fit this coupling that'll go to the air filter, I can go ahead and put this vacuum line back in place. That is awesome. I love the carbon. I almost forgot, before I go any further, I gotta reconnect these vacuum lines. So this little junction that I pulled out of the back of the factory airbox gets reconnected into the lines just as they were, but the portion that went into the airbox, there's a rubber tube that's gonna connect to that, and it's gonna be routed to the vacuum port on this pipe right here, the one that's not being used. So I'll route that one accordingly. And then this contraption, so I talked about the Y fitting, and here's the last piece of pipe. Like I said, reusing the front portion of the factory intake. Make sure we still get a nice stream of steady, cool air. And then this is just gonna slip over the polished pipe and just get secured with a hose clamp. Now to just finish connecting the PCV and vacuum hose. All right, and get that one routed. Cut it down just a tick. Beautiful. At this point, everything is finished as far as the intake system. So I've got all the couplings tightened down, everything's straight, the canister's straight, all of the evap stuff and whatnot's hooked up correctly, and you know, it's all looking pretty good, except one thing. And I'm sure, I mean, those of you who saw the beginning of the video obviously know what I'm about to say, but it doesn't look as good as the factory airbox, obviously. Now, the carbon canister, beautiful. Polished pipes, you know, the turbo blanket, it looks awesome. But the whole thing about the Abarth is that big red, you know, with the cover with the scorpion logo and stuff, and it's just like, ew, coil packs and pipes and all that kind of stuff. It looks awful. So, if you care about looks like I do, if you don't care about looks, you can save yourself a little bit of money and just rock it as it is, but I am going to install this CNC machined cover to cover all of this stuff, and it has the Scorpion logo in it, just like, you know, or not just like, but, you know, similar to how the original setup was. So that's going to tie in well with the turbo blanket. And this is just one of the add-ons that you can do with this kit that Madness offers, which is pretty unique. I don't know anybody else that offers something similar to this. So basically, you take the oil cap off and it slides over like so, and they include hardware to get it mounted in place. So let's do it. So there's two mounting provisions in the head that you're going to use. This one right here is already drilled and tapped. The one back here is basically one of the ball studs that the original airbox used. So just use a 10mm wrench and pop that bad boy off. Now, you've got two little pieces of hose right here. They're basically using these as pedestals, so you can kind of like adjust it a little bit just based on like how these squeeze down, just to make sure it's like level and whatnot. So anyway, let's get this on. Now I'm just getting these bolts positioned. I recommend using a little bit of anti-seize on them. And last but not least, just a little icing on the cake. Sweet. I ended up having to do some extra fine-tuning adjustments as well, because I knew the charge pipe that goes up to the factory pipe didn't quite look right, and turns out I had it in a bolt hole that was just a little too far back. So I got that repositioned, everything lines up a whole lot better, and now everything, couplers, the airbox, all of that stuff is perfectly symmetrical and looking exactly like it's supposed to. I am ecstatic. Now let's go ahead and start her up and let her run. Warm up for just a bit, and then we'll really see how she sounds. That's left is to take it for a drive. Hopefully this audio comes across pretty decently. Sometimes the GoPro audio sounds a little muted, especially with some of the rougher roads around here. But first and foremost, you definitely notice a good bit more intake noise, but it's not annoying whatsoever. like you heard up at the front of the car when, you know, revving the engine, you can hear more, you know, turbo sound effects and stuff like that, like pss and stuff like that. But from the inside, you don't notice it quite as much, which some people I'm sure are gonna like. If you want all of the extra noise and stuff, you can actually get an aftermarket blow-off valve that'll really make the pss noticeable from within the interior. But all in all, I think this is a really nice setup. I think it definitely has a little bit of extra power, but not only that, I think the power comes on quicker. Still got that little backfire every now and then. I love it. I swear, these are some of the most fun cars for the money. They're just absolutely wonderful. So cool. All in all, I think the intake was a worthy upgrade. I really do love how it looks. The contrast between the red cover and the turbo blanket and the polished pipes, like, gives it a bit more of a racy look without being like too much in your face, and it actually looks really good. Like, I just can't imagine doing an intake upgrade on one of these cars and not having something within the engine bay that makes it look special, like the original setup, you know, with the red portion on the factory airbox and stuff. So the fact that Madness went the extra mile to really design a proper looking setup that, you know, makes you proud to look at it at the end of the day, I think, you know, hats off to them. They did a phenomenal job. So cool. Well, everyone, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to check out the affiliate links down in the description box below if you'd like to learn more about any of these parts or pick up some stuff for yourself. Any purchase helps support the channel and the content, and it really means a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like down below. It helps the videos, and if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing that too, and make sure you turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on the upcoming content. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.